Republicans hold the cards at 45's impeachment trial, but this could all change soon. The Senate impeachment trial of 45 will begin in earnest today with the tussle between Republicans and Democrats over whether witnesses should be called immediately, a question that is all but certain to remain unresolved after the first phase of the trial, when the two sides present their arguments. Democrats plan to swiftly force several votes in subpoenaing witnesses, votes that Republicans have pledged to band together to defeat. Republicans have to vote to start the trial without witnesses, as occurred in the 1999 Senate impeachment trial of then President Bill Clinton, said Senator Kevin Cramer, who is a Republican of North Dakota. Beyond that, we will be informed by what happens. A handful of Senate Republicans said they are opening to considering witnesses after the first phase of the trial, after both 45's legal team and House Democrats acting as prosecutors get time to present their cases to senators and respond to senators' written questions. The 47 Senate Democrats would have to persuade 4 Republicans to support their effort to subpoena witnesses, and the effort would fail, meaning the trial could wrap up in far less time than Clinton's 5-week trial, which ended with his acquittal. Although it appears a near certainty that Democrats won't have the 67 votes needed to convict 45 or remove him from office as we want him to be, the possibility of 4 Republicans bucking the party to issue subpoenas has added a huge sense of uncertainty to the trial. 45 is charged with 2 articles of impeachment, the first for abusing his power, and concerning his efforts last year to pressure the government of Ukraine to dig up dirt on a political opponent, Joe Biden, by withholding congressionally approved military aid in a White House meeting. The second, for obstructing Congress, focuses on his directions to aides not to testify or provide documents to the House immediately. Impeachment inquiry immediately, like he was supposed to. The first order of business Tuesday will be a vote on Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who's a Republican from Kentucky, proposing an outline for the trial. Under the proposed rules, beginning Wednesday, the House would have 24 hours or over 2 days to make its case, followed by another 24 hours over 2 days of the squatters' team. Senators then would have 16 hours to ask questions on both parties. From there, the Senate would move to the pivotal question of whether witnesses and documents should be subpoenaed. Mitch McConnell has framed the rules as very similar to the rules for Clinton's trial. Though the number of total hours is the same, neither party in the Clinton trial had to cram them all up in 2 days. Democrats are frustrated by other changes in the rules. If the witness vote fails, it would be all but impossible for senators to offer more motions for witnesses, plus the Senate won't automatically include the House's impeachment inquiry record as evidence. Senate subpoenas would open the possibility of forcing testimony from several current and former administration officials who refused to participate in the House impeachment effort and who potentially could provide new or incriminating information about the squatters' actions. The Senate gets to decide whatever it wants with 51 votes, said Senator Brian Schatz, who's a Democrat from Hawaii. It really does depend on whether we can find 4 Republicans who will demonstrate their independence, not rhetorically, but with a vote. The debate over witnesses will put to the test of the vice-like grip Mitch McConnell has maintained over his group of Senate Republicans for upward of a decade. If Mitch McConnell can keep all 53 Senate Republicans together to oppose the witness effort, it would mark a victory akin to the wall of the GOP erected in an unsuccessful effort to block passage of the 2010 Affordable Care Act, or its successful push to keep a Supreme Court seat open for much of 2016. 3 Republicans have signaled openness to witnesses. Senators Mitt Romney of Utah, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, and Susan Collins of Maine. Murkowski and Collins' history of bucking the party on occasion. Both opposed the Obamacare repeal in 2017, and Murkowski opposed the appointment of the rapist Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court in 2018. But they have made some Republicans close to the squatter privately worried that history could repeat itself at this pivotal moment. There are other possibilities for surprises during this trial. If the effort to subpoena witnesses is successful, it would force a likely standoff between the Republican-controlled Senate and the Republican White House over claims of executive privilege versus congressional oversight. 45 already suggested he would claim executive privilege if a subpoena were to go to former National Security Advisor John Bolton, a top target of Democrats who has he's already first he had denied wanting to testify. Now he said he's willing to comply with the Senate subpoena to testify. In addition, new information has come out since the House voted to impeach on December 18th. Lev Parnas, a former associate of 45 lawyer Dumbass Giuliani, has now turned over documents and given media interviews in which he said he and Dumbass Giuliani tried to convince Ukrainian President Zelensky administration to conduct an investigation into Biden and his son as part of an effort to ensure that 45 would win re-election. And led House trial manager Representative Adam Schiff, who's a Democrat from California, said he expects more evidence to come out in the course of this trial. It is unclear how aggressively Chief Justice John Roberts, Jr., who is presided at the trial, will insert himself into the Senate's actions. The rare nature of a Senate impeachment trial means more scenarios are relatively unknown, such as the role Roberts can and cannot play and how the Senate might handle a potential 50-50 tie. The impeachment trial also requires charges to some normal Senate procedure. Senators are largely not allowed to speak during a trial, so disputes such as one expected Tuesday on witnesses will likely mean that the Senate will go out of a session so senators can speak privately and the C-SPAN camera will be shut off and the reporters ushered out of the chamber gallery. 45 adds his own uncertainty. Although he's the defendant, he will likely tweet commentary and talk to reporters as the trial proceeds, offering real-time analysis of his lawyer's performance, advice to Senate Republicans, and caustic comments about his critics. The Senate itself will be a bit transformed. Typically, only senators can speak on the Senate floor, and senators rarely sit at their desk instead of coming and going when voters are called. But for the trial, senators have been instructed to remain quietly at their desk for the length of the proceedings. Electronics are supposed to be kept in newly installed installed cubbies outside the chamber, and even outside reading material unrelated to the trial has been banned. The only people allowed to speak will be Mitch McConnell, the House managers, and 45's lawyers. The slow pace might be particularly irksome to the four senators: Bernie Sanders, who's an independent from Vermont, Elizabeth Warren, Democrat from Massachusetts, Amy Klobuchar, Democrat from Minnesota, and Michael Bennet, Democrat from Colorado, who are running for squatter and will spend weeks in the Senate instead of working the campaign trail. But the pace will pick up dramatically after House senators and 45 lawyers complete their presentations, likely on Saturday. If Mitch McConnell's rules are approved by the Senate as expected. At that time, senators will have 16 hours to ask questions, written down and submitted to Roberts or of lawyers on both sides. After that, the senators would get back to the questions of witnesses. Democrats are confident that even if they lose their opening votes Tuesday, they will have a better shot at gathering GOP support at the end of the first phase, which is likely to end next week. That look up the witnesses' vote may depend in part on how the first phase is viewed by the public. If Republicans feel like the trial appears incomplete, they may feel pressure to call witnesses. Collins said Thursday that she was likely to support calling witnesses at that time. She is working with a fairly small group of Republican senators and a plan to call witnesses. She told reporters in Maine this month Romney has said he would like to hear from Bolton, but both Romney and Murkowski have refused to. Both Romney and Murkowski have refused to weigh in on the process of calling witnesses until later on this trial. Others who are viewed as potential Republican supporters have been more coy. They said that I will wait to see whether if after hearing the case and everyone asks their questions, which will be an extensive process, whether I think we need more information, and if we do, I'll vote to get more information. If we don't, I won't, said Senator Lamar Alexander, who's a Republican from Tennessee. But the issue is not clear-cut yet. Many Senate Republicans have already insisted that they would not support any arrangement in which one side of the case gets to present witnesses and the other side doesn't. It may be a tough debate, admitted Senator Mike Brown, who's a Republican from Indiana. If we get there, I know reciprocally, we would be an important thing to me. It would be an important thing to me. And then I think that also makes the discussion difficult for Democrats, he predicted. That means if Democrats get to call Bolton, Parnas, or McMulvaney, acting White House Chief of Staff, then 45 lawyers will get to call witnesses too. At the top of Republicans' wish list, Woody Biden's son Hunter. Some want to call Schiff, who was acting as the House's lead impeachment manager. What's fair for the goose is fair for the gander, said Senator Mike Rounds, a Republican from South Dakota. If we think the House has given probable cause to actually bring in witnesses. Most certainly the squatter has every right to call his witnesses as well, but his witnesses are going to be liars anyway. They're going to basically lie and deflect. So I wouldn't trust 45's witnesses at all.